On today's episode, I asked the expert, Pritch, about crisis communication in the digital age. Okay, Pritch, you're the guy here. You're the expert in crisis communication. You're the PR master. I have a question for you, very serious question I think really people want to hear the answer to. How is crisis communication as one aspect of public relations has it changed? How is it different in the digital age now with mobile, with social media, etc.?
It's more challenging, I think, than back in the day when it was just traditional media, legacy media. There used to be a news cycle that was 24 hours, and if something happened, after the evening news broadcast, you had until the next day to kind of get your ducks in a row.
Right.
Now it's like a 24-second news cycle.
You can't even wait for the top of the hour.
No,
right?
Not at all. I mean, it's got to be pretty immediate.
No, that's so. We started that process with cable news, right? Went from the 10 o'clock news to the 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
And now with the internet and, of course, social media, we're, like you said, 24 seconds. It's hitting the world quickly. Some politicians got in trouble this week for liking a tweet.
Right.
Amazing that that's news now, that liking a tweet.
Well, it's tied to the source, and that's what makes the story. But, the traditional logic back in the day was you had 1 hour to kind of get your ducks in a row for breaking news. Now I think you've got like 1 minute,
right,
to get your ducks in a row.
So the question really is, if you're the CEO of a company, maybe a politician, maybe just an important person, a brand, an actor, an athlete, is social media your friend or a foe?
Yes.
It's both.
It's both. It can be your friend because you get immediate feedback. You get a chance to see whether or not your message is attenuating and where it might be going cockeyed, because it's always going to go cockeyed. You just don't know exactly where. But it's a significant foe too. I mean, once a rumor gets out there, it's all over but the shouting. So it can be a friend. It can help you get your message out quickly to a broad spectrum of people. It can give you feedback, that important feedback that you need, even in the middle of the crisis. But it is, as I said, a significant foe because of the speed with which information travels in that channel.
So with the speed of information traveling, and of course now fake news and people creating opinion and trying to act like it's factual, can you actually control the message anymore? Should you even try? I
don't think you could control the message back in the legacy days. The best you can do is to put together, we'd like to say, when I was in the military, we like to say we give answers, but we also give perspective. And I think that's probably the best you can do. Craft your message carefully, make sure that you understand what's going on. As a crisis communicator, first thing I want to know is, okay, what's the real story here?
Right.
I have to know what's going on so I can avoid the minefields and craft a message that attenuates and addresses the issue.
So really, it's your client relationship comes first, right? They have to be honest with you and give you the full information about what's happening and what they've done, good or bad, for you can help them manage the situation, right?
Absolutely. And if they can't be straight with you, then
that's
I
not
guess
the client for you.
You
right?
better hire somebody else, because I'm not going to get caught in a lie. That's my credibility, which impacts the credibility of the organization and thus its reputation. So just come clean. We'll figure out how to work through it.
That's why we had that ethics discussion previously.
Bam.
Right. You got to have ethics. If you can't convince anyone that something that's not really a big deal isn't really a big deal if you haven't been ethical and upfront with them leading up to that, right?
Right.
And your reputation precedes you, of course.
And you will always be found out. If you leave out a fact, if you leave out a point, it will come out. And now you've got you created a worse problem for yourself than you had initially.
So, just speaking of creating even worse problems, are you creating an even worse problem to have no response at all?
Sometimes that's an appropriate response. Sometimes doing nothing is the right thing to do.
That's becoming less an actual answer these days.
Well,
people really expect
expect a response. They really do. But if you're not the lead, if you're in the industry and something has happened to a company in your industry and it's not you, then there's no reason for you to jump in at the very beginning of this thing and shift the focus onto yourself.
Right.
Follow the story, and when it's appropriate, then you can comment. But that's an example of initially doing nothing. If it's not in your lane, if it's not your ball game, don't play it.
But if it's your crisis, if it's your name attached to the
Absolutely.
The thing everyone's talking about, if you're trending on Twitter or on Google, you definitely want to get in front of that, don't you?
You better have already been there.
That's right, which means you need to either be really good at PR yourself or working with a professional.
Absolutely.
So
don't try this at home, kids.
Right. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to ask you now a little bit more of a Pritch question, less of a client question. Tell me about a dream project or client you're thinking about. Tell me something you would love to just land in your lap. Think big. Think big.
Absolutely. What would really get me jazzed in a client is a leader who is so confident in what he or she is doing and so knowledgeable about the industry, about the product, about the their lane.
Right.
That they would partner with us to enter the thought leadership space. There are a lot of folks, as you mentioned earlier, fake news. There are a lot of folks that pass themselves off as experts. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert actually talk about what they're an expert in?
Well, that makes sense.
I mean, oh my gosh, how much, how enlightening that would be for everybody. So that thought leadership space doesn't get a lot of attention. It's an area that can help boost the reputation of an organization very, very quickly and establish them as the pace setters in that particular niche or industry.
I like it. It's a little bit of influencer marketing, a little bit of content marketing. That's a great way to utilize someone who has expertise in a specific area, right?
Absolutely. Staking a claim to being the leader in their space.
Right.
So Kyle, Turnabout Fair Play, tell me about your dream client.
For me, I always get jealous when I see this happen with other folks. I'm always thinking about this. I do a lot of work with clients at the beginning, concept, and doing business planning and strategy. Usually goes through with their branding and their positioning and all this other stuff. And then a lot of time, they want to take it and run. They want to operate the business. I want to be able to help someone through the whole entire process, not just creating the brand, but living and breathing the brand, all the way through the physical space, the interior design, the internal communications, staff training, and then of course, because my thing I'm always talking about, marketing is a two-way conversation. Being part of that process of, now that it's out in the world, getting the feedback from the audience through various ways that you do that when you have really good attentive marketing, and making those adjustments, whether it's in their marketing and their communication, but even in their product offering, product development, audience
customer
development,
service,
exactly, etc. All the way through. I want to touch everything from the basic concept of a business through the what brand of toilet paper they're using in the bathroom. I really want to be able to give expertise at every level that ties back to that overarching concept of who you are, what you do, and why it's important.
Right.
And not let those little holes in slip. And I know at some point everyone's like, well, cost effectiveness and ROI and etc. But our favorite brands, right, that we all think, if you think of the 4 or 5 brands that you always refer back to, it has great marketing, great presence, and great product, and you pay whatever for it. They think that way, that far through.
Yep.
Their internal and external, everything is connected and back to their core message and value. And I want to help someone do that. I want to be able to point to a brand in 5 or 10 years from now and have someone listed as one of their top 5 brands up there with the major players and say they're so thorough, they're so complete with what they do. And it's authentic. It's not fake either.
Right.
It's a real deal. That's what I'm interested in helping create for someone. I don't know if it's going to ever happen or not, but that's my dream gig. So I think that's a great place to end to this week's show. As always, love talking to you, Pritch, about these things. And for you guys, we'll be back again next week with another topic on the NeoMarketing Podcast.